What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. So, obviously, it's Oscar nominations week, and within that, there are a lot of videos on this channel. We've talked snubs, I did a live reaction, I still have to give you guys my predictions, but before we do that, I want to do something that I've been doing over the past couple of years, but I've always waited until we get closer to the Oscars. But I want to do this, I want to get it out of the way right now. I want to give you guys my personal ranking of all of the Best Picture nominees. All 9 of them, so we're going from 9 to 1, and these are not what I consider to be from worst to best in terms of quality. That's mixed in, of course, but these are my favorite films. So my number 1 may perplex some, and my number 9 may make some people upset, but here's where I want to start with this video. This is the first year in a long, long time, and it may be the first year ever, where I have liked to loved, you know what? I'll say loved all of the nominations for Best Picture. Are these my 9 favorite movies of the year? No. Some of them are in my teens, but these are 9 of my favorite movies of the year. So when I put something at number 9 on this list, just know that I really love my number 9, and I really love my number 1, and they're not that far apart on my top films of the year. But we're going to go through them, we're going to talk about them, and I need you in the comments below, of course, letting me know your lists. And if you enjoy this video, if you like what we're doing on this channel, all of this awards coverage, be sure to smash that thumbs up button. But okay, number 9, a film that I absolutely loved, one of my favorites of the year. This is Little Women, Greta Gerwig's film that I think is just wonderful. And every year I've done this listing, I always seem to talk down to the lower movies, but I can't do that this year. I'm telling you guys, this is a great year for Best Picture nominees. And Little Women is a film that I just thought was really, really good, within my top 25, top 20 favorite movies of the year. Saoirse Ronan, as always, carries the film, but you have Florence Pugh that almost steals the entire show. This is a relatable story, and I saw some people going into this film saying, well, it's just going to be a movie that appeals to women. I was sitting in the theater shedding some tears. I was sitting in the theater getting emotional, gravitating towards this story. So what Little Women did for me personally was really, really great. And just because it's number 9 does not mean I did not love the film. Another movie that I loved, but is somehow finding its way down to the bottom of my list, is what a lot of people, possibly myself included, see to be the frontrunner for Best Picture, and that is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is the brand new Quentin Tarantino film that so many people are raving over. It is winning and winning and winning, from Critics' Choice to Golden Globes. That's why I think it has a fair shot at Best Picture, but I find this movie extremely entertaining. Leo obviously giving a great performance, but it's Brad Pitt who, just like Florence Pugh, comes in and almost steals the entire show. But it is their chemistry, and it's the reflection, and that seems to be a consistent thing with movies like this and The Irishman. It's reflecting on what those particular filmmakers find so interesting and intriguing about, one, this world, but two, for this movie's case, Hollywood. Hollywood is what Tarantino looks at and brings to life with grand cinematography, wonderful editing, so many things about this film that makes it work, right? The reason a film like this is lower than some of the other movies is just because it didn't stick with me maybe as much, it didn't hit me as hard, and it is a tad bit long, but that takes nothing away from it. I think this movie is really, really great, and possibly one of my favorite comedies of the year. You know what? It is my favorite comedy of the year, just looking at my top movies of the year list. This is Jojo Rabbit. This is a film that I truly believe can sneak in, because every year there's that one movie that appeals to both the hardcore critics and appeals to your average, more general audience. And I feel like Jojo Rabbit is that film. Yes, it's slightly controversial for some, but I feel like for the most part, people resonate with this film when they see it, just because of the fact that Waititi managed to ride this line so perfectly within this film, and hit the emotion while also hitting the comedy, while also skidding around some things that maybe would have been a bit offensive. And man, that is to me brilliant comedy. But back to what I was saying, Jojo Rabbit could be the one to sneak in and win Best Picture this year. I'm not kidding. Green Book did it last year. That is a crowd-pleasing movie. Very different film. One not a lot of people expected to win, right? Same case with Jojo Rabbit. And I guess you could say that for Ford v Ferrari, but I don't see so much hype for that film as opposed to Jojo Rabbit, which has a fair shot at Best Picture this year. But speaking of Ford v Ferrari, that is next up on this list. I find this film immensely entertaining, and to say it is the best dad movie of the year is not a negative. It's not a slight in the least bit. I had such a good time. It is right outside of my top 10 of the year. From the sound design to the acting, Matt Damon, Christian Bale, two performances that I believe were a tad bit overlooked at some award ceremonies, and Mangold's direction. I love James Mangold, man. Logan, 310 to Yuma, Ford v Ferrari. There are so many films that you can just think about how precise he is with every scene and how moments transition into the next, and then the emotional gut punch within this film I thought was brilliant. So Ford v Ferrari for me is a movie that I did not stop thinking about, and that goes for The Irishman as well, which is next up on this list. I think The Irishman suffers from, it's one of my favorite movies of the year, but suffers from the exact same thing that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood suffers from, in that it's just a tad bit long, and that's the comment. It's such a boring critique for a film that is not boring, for a film that at that 3 hour and 30-minute runtime entertains you almost the entire time, or at least it entertained me. And saying that Tarantino approached Hollywood from that perspective, it's the same case for Scorsese, who approaches really what he's been doing his entire life, the gangster genre, almost. But now he's approaching it from an older perspective and seeing how life comes in and gut punches these characters towards the end of the film, and just reflecting on your life in general. It made me think, and I thought the third act, well, there are so many moments within this movie where I just think the tension and the climactic dialogue that is rarely captured as well as it is here is better than any other thing I've seen this year. Still a bit odd to me that De Niro didn't get in, but Pacino and Pesci did. But still, 3 great performances across the board, and Martin Scorsese, what more can you say? But there are so many things that you can say about that film and Parasite. Parasite is a movie that I just don't really have words for. And I'll talk about it when I do my predictions video. I'll absolutely talk about it. It's clearly not my favorite movie on this list, even though it's very, very close. But it may be the one that I end up rooting for Best Picture, because I believe this is probably the best quality film. I believe this has the most that goes into it. The narrative structure is really unlike anything we've ever seen before. And this cast is so good. A bit of an unknown cast, but underneath the direction of Bong Joon-ho, who I think has just mastered his craft with this film. I don't know if he can go up from here. It's going to be tough. Parasite is one of the best movies of the last few years. It's in my top 10 of the year. Everything about this movie is absolute gold for me, and I love it. I know it seems low at number 4, whatever, but I think it's brilliant. This is the film that I think a lot of people will have at the bottom of their list because of the controversy, because of the fact that, it's just not a movie that's appealing to everyone. And a lot of people are flustered at the fact that this got so many nominations at the Oscars. I don't think voters are flustered because they voted for it. I don't think people within Hollywood are flustered because I feel like those people appreciate the film a lot more than certain critics and bloggers and whatnot do. And I'm not faulting anyone who does not like this film. I've seen plenty of wonderful arguments when it comes to the story structure and certain things about the narrative, and so many critiques where I'm like, yeah, I get it. I just don't necessarily agree. I believe Joker hit me in such a way that I never expected as a comic book fan, clearly, from birth. I mean, I grew up reading comic books. I grew up with the character of the Joker, so I will admit I do have a bit of a soft spot for this character. But to see my favorite villain of all time, a different interpretation, but my favorite villain, to be nominated for Best Picture, and to make $1 billion, and to do what it did, and to hit people the way that it hit people, man, I'm so happy. I'm so happy to be a comic book fan. A fan of theme parks, if you will. But I am, man, and I think Joker was structured in such a way that warrants an Oscar nomination. I truly believe that. And the fact that it made $1 billion is pretty important as well, and I just love this character. Once again, it's a soft spot kind of deal, but I just thought this movie was absolutely brilliant. And the more I watch it, the more it grows on me, the more I appreciate it, and the more I appreciate Joaquin's performance. So, yeah, this was my one choice. I'm like, well, they're going to turn the video off and not hear me out, but that's okay. Listen, and if you love the Joker, if you hate the Joker, I just want to hear your commentary down below. I want to know why. I want to see some discussion. And it's a very controversial movie, I understand that, but man, oh man, it hit me in the right way. I was struck so hard with emotion watching Marriage Story for the first time, and the intensity that builds up between these two, and just the way that it all feels so natural struck me in a way to make me think Noah Baumbach deserves a Best Director nod. He didn't get one, of course, but man, oh man, did Marriage Story not hit me so hard. The climax that a lot of people have seen on Twitter and said that, well, that's not acting. But they don't realize that there's an hour and 35 minutes of build-up prior to that, and that's when they explode. And that's what I related to the most. And not to speak, I'm not speaking against my wife or anything, but we've had those moments where we let things build up and then we just collapse under the pressure and we yell at each other. We're not as intense as they were in this movie, and I didn't lean over and punch the wall like Adam Driver did, but the performances, the direction, the score, the cinematography, the color correction in this movie is beautiful, and it is the best film I've ever seen dealing with divorce. It's one of the best films I've ever seen dealing with marriage in general and how it takes a lot out of you, but at the end of the day, you still try your best to be friends. And I just thought it was a beautiful movie. Many will not have it as high on their list because it's not the most entertaining of the films. I'll admit that. It may not be the most exaggerated film of the bunch, but Marriage Story, for me, worked so well. Did exactly what it was supposed to do. My number one. Y'all know what this is. Talked about it. Letterboxd, YouTube, Twitter, doesn't matter. I have defended this film from the beginning, a month and a half ago when I saw it in early December, and that's before I knew how the response was going to be. And I'm just sitting back going, I hope people like this as much as I do, but thankfully it's got a super high score in Letterboxd, IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, you name it, people have... Maybe not everyone loves this film to the degree that I do, and that's okay. That's why this is my list of favorites, but they've at least appreciated 1917 for its technical achievement, for the way that it approaches its story, the fact that, no, it can't build these characters up in a normal fashion because it just doesn't have the luxury of cutting away and building up their relationships, the emotion through that trope that we see in movies, but it's not even really a trope because it's just what movies do. But a film like 1917 can't do that. So how do you make us care about the characters? Well, it's the subtlety within the reveals and the story and the dialogue all the way throughout the movie. That's why I related to the story, something that I see a lot of people are not able to do. And I understand, I get that perspective, but that's the one thing for me that takes this film over the edge. Most people will call this a technical masterpiece. Most people will be awestruck by what it does visually, but it's the story for me that completes this circle and makes it by far, one of my favorite war movies of the decade, maybe of all time. I still have to think about that. And if you guys saw my top 10 of 2019 list, it's my number one movie of the year. So obviously, I'm going to put it at number one. Now, being my number one movie of the year, do I think it is the best overall film of the year? Not necessarily, right? This, Parasite, Marriage Story, heck, The Irishman. I could argue for all of those films what is the technically best of the year, but this is my list of favorites. This is my 9 Best Picture nominees ranked, but here's what I need you guys to do. Get in that comment section. Let me know. How do you feel about my list? You in disagreement? Agree a little bit. And then give me your lists and tell me why your number one is your number one, your number 9 is your number 9. I would love to see that. I would love to hear that down below. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys watching this video. Man, I love talking about the Oscars. I love competition. I love seeing who's going to win. But next up, not my next video, but my next Oscar video will be my Oscar predictions, where I predict every single winner nomination. Probably going to get a lot wrong. That's okay. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, and I'll see you very soon.